Hi, I'm Franco Luna Puma Podcast. You're listening to Teka Teka News, balitang thinking, hindi breaking. In this episode,
Nananatili ang ating layunin na makakapagpatayo ng dekalidad at murang pabahay para sa bawat pamilyang Pilipino, lalo na para sa mga mahihirap na ating mga kababayan.
we speak to Habitat for Humanity about the country's growing homelessness problem.
Kitang-kita ko, very frustrated nga ako, nakikita ko, palaki ng palaki ang kakulangan natin sa housing. Hanggang umabot na nung umupo na ako bilang presidente, nakita ko, ang estimate namin halos 6.5 million na ang kakulangan ng pabahay dito sa buong Pilipinas.
That was President Bongbong Marcos at the turnover of 30,000 housing units in Naik, Cavite. His administration has taken on the goal of building 1 million houses per year.
Yung panahon na yun, bahay at lupa. Ngunit, lalo na sa mga urban areas, wala nang lupa. Mahirap na makahanap ng lupa. At siguro, mas efficient, gagawa tayo ng mid-rise na tinatawag.
30,000 free homes may sound like a lot, but the truth is we're still a long way from solving homelessness in the Philippines. Listen to Mardi Mapa-Suplido. She's CEO of Habitat for Humanity here.
Habitat for Humanity Philippines is trying really to make sure that every Filipino has a decent and affordable home, right? And yet we see the situation just going out your homes, looking around. And according to the Department of Human Settlements and Urban Development, the housing backlog in our country is estimated to be as high as 6.5 million homes. And these are not individuals. These are 6.5 million families as of 2023. The past 20 years, the average number of houses produced every year by both government and the private sector is only 200,000 units. So we have a increasing backlog that I really doubt that we'd be able to cover unless all sectors contribute.
Kasabay ng mga tirahang ibinabahagi natin, tiyakin natin na mabigyan din natin sila ng pagkakataon na makapaghanap buhay at magamit ang kanilang mga kakayahan at talino tungo sa kanilang tuloy-tuloy na pag-unlad.
The president has said that any government housing program should also come with livelihood opportunities. That means public housing should be close to schools, small malls, and public transportation. The biggest problem, though, is the availability of land. Tama nga, wala nang lupa lalo na sa mga urban areas.
One of the things that they're trying to do is to push for all government offices, from national to local to barangay, to be able to spot and release government land which can be used. But even that, one of the mayors, for example, I was talking to in Don Salvador Benedicto, for example, this is in Negros, he has no land even for their municipal hall because nga, either they're owned privately and the private owners of the land are not willing to sell them to government, or government has not allotted budget for this purchase of the land. What's interesting, this DSHUD secretary is
That's Human Settlements and Urban Development Secretary Jose Acozar.
is actually prioritizing is the building of vertical homes. This is not yet that acceptable to many Filipino families kasi syempre they want to be able to plant, right? They want a horizontal home so they can plant their vegetables, so they can hang their clothes behind, so they can barbecue behind their houses, right? And so that they can extend kasi yan na naman Filipino families.
Not only is land scarce in urban areas, Mardi says there's a growing shortage in rural areas too.
If you go around the different provinces, you think there's so much land. I'll give you an example. In Negros, okay, there's a lot of land. This is where I'm from, right? And yet so much of that land are owned by hacienderos, no, sugar planters. So families are not allowed, of course, to till the land, but they're also not allowed to live there after they reach the age of retirement. So the numbers of homeless Filipino families in Negros is increasing so high.
Under the law, private companies building condos or villages are required to set aside up to 15% of their budgets for socialized housing. But that isn't always followed, which means the government remains at the mercy of landowners.
DSUD Secretary Acuzar, right, has a target of 6 million homes by the end of 2028, right, and 1 million a year to be able to reach the backlog. So in the past few months, they've been talking to various mayors going all around the country, asking the mayors, how many homes can we build in your LGU under the Pambansang Pabahay program of this new government? After going around all the countries, they've only been able to sign 49 memorandums of understanding with LGUs, and they've only been able to get a listing of below 500,000 houses.
And then, of course, there are the natural disasters that come like clockwork every year, destroying countless homes in its wake. We're pausing for a quick break now. When we return, how can you help? We count the ways. Habitat for Humanity says the cost of living crisis caused by the pandemic has made things a lot worse.
If you look here in Metro Manila, because I guess of the fact that so much of our company, so much of the work is concentrated in city centers, the cost of living is so high that, again, no, it's really unaffordable. When we talk about unaffordable, that really is a subjective term. It depends, of course, on how much income every family makes. Some research institutions, for example, globally would say that an individual can afford to spend 30% of their income for rent of their house or payment of their homes. But that depends, right? If you're earning 8,000 pesos, setting aside 30% for homes will not leave you with enough to eat, enough food on the table for a family of 3, 4, or 6. If the government is trying to achieve that number, but then cost of a house and lot, if you're talking to the private sector, they know that the cost of a 28 or 24 to 28 square meter house is 1.2 million. That's not affordable to low-income families. Even if they have pag-ibig loans for 20 years, 30 years, their monthly salary, it's still way over what they can afford every month.
But there have also been small wins along the way.
We think that one of the solutions is really ensuring or pushing sustainable and climate resilient designs and solutions in terms of the design of the house and the materials. In Leyte, we've partnered naman with the Green Ants company that turns plastic into eco bricks. And what's interesting here is we're not just using the eco bricks in some of our housing and some of the facilities. We've set up an eco hub in one of our communities in Leyte so that it's the homeowners themselves who build the eco bricks that they use for the houses.
Habitat for Humanity has been in the Philippines for 35 years now. They've been key to organizing the efforts of donors, private sector groups, and even the government.
We get the land donated, we get private companies to cover the gap funding between what the families would take out as a loan and the actual cost of the house. We have volunteers, right, who help build the house. In some of our communities, instead of asking the families to cover for the whole cost, many of the land in our projects are donated. We get the subsidy from government or from Pag-ibig. So instead of paying, for example, in Cebu, 750,000, the families only take out a loan of 300,000 from Pag-ibig. We're trying to advocate what we call a P4 approach, where it's people, public, private partnerships. Building houses is not a dole-out thing. It really is a partnership with the families. So we need to recognize their contribution, first of all, to the design, but even to the actual building of the houses.
Habitat for Humanity is also incubating startups that are focused on sustainable solutions to housing, for instance, by using eco-friendly materials. But there's always more to be done.
There's no way government, private sector, and even NGOs like Habitat can fulfill the need. We need the help of as many Filipinos, young and old. And you can help us in so many ways by volunteering to help us build the houses. We have communities that really need volunteers to build. So one way, for example, is by organizing with your friends or employees of a corporation. You can just come to us and we can set a morning where you can volunteer, build. If you have other skills that you can share with the community, we also welcome that. Like if you'd like to help teach the children theater or music, if you'd like to share your financial literacy skills, no, and so on.
Mardi says giving the poor shelter is key to alleviating poverty.
Many of the Filipino families really live in poor housing conditions. So especially here in Metro Manila, you'll see that so many are at risk from, health, from the location they're in. For a Filipino family, one, the education of their children is so much better. And I've heard stories of children, they talk na after na, parang before, every time it rains, they're not able to study. Every time it starts raining and then it's starting to flood, of course, they have to, their books either are wet, they cannot concentrate on their studies and their exams. And then when they transferred them to a new home, a big increase in their performance in school and their grades. Second, because the families don't need to pay rent anymore for the houses that I guess they were using, right? It really increased their economic status. Third, it provides better health. And we've seen this during the pandemic where everyone had to work from home, had to isolate, right? And even if before the pandemic, when you have a better home, you are safer from diseases, from a lot of risks. It increases the empowerment of women, we notice. That's why we make sure that the title of the house is provided to the families. It provides some security. So from a high cost of, let's say, 750,000 to 1.2 million, we are able to make this affordable if you have different partners contributing. So for us, that's the solution so that the government can achieve its target. When you provide a house for a family, you really are able to break the cycle of poverty. It really is amazing.
That was today's episode of Teka Teka News. Again, I'm Franco Luna. This episode was edited by Joe Salcedo and produced by Kat Ventura. If you liked this episode, share it with a friend or two. And of course, don't forget to follow Teka Teka News and Puma Podcast on your favorite podcast app or on YouTube. Thanks for listening.